Okay, let me just.
We are recording.
Okay, it being 6:02 on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, I call to order this meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission. Okay. I have to read my little, oh, I don't have my little spiel in front of me. It's not on the agenda.
I haven't typed in.
Do you want to, if you share it, I will.
You're asking for a lot here.
Hold on. In the folder. Let me go back to the folder.
Concom meeting, August 26th, opening statement.
Is this, yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. So this meeting was rescheduled from August 19th. My name is Stephanie Danielson, and I am the chair of the commission. This meeting is being recorded, and in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency. The August 26th public meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Real-time public participation and comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the, utilizing
No
the Zoom
sneezing.
virtual meeting software for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair via the question and answer function. Submitted text comments will be read into the record at the appropriate points in the meeting. For those of you joining us by phone who want to ask a question, press *9 to raise your hand. Sorry about that, Jim, if you're on the phone. A copy of the recording and transcript will be posted to the city's webpage. All notes will be done via all votes, I think I read that as notes every time, will be done via roll call to ensure count accuracy. Quorum call, board members, please respond in the affirmative to indicate your presence at this meeting. Stephanie Danielson, aye.
Joanne here.
Bonnie,
Aye.
we have 3 members voting in the affirmative. I declare we have a quorum. On tonight's agenda, we have the following. The first item is a request for a certificate of compliance, 1854 Main Street. We have a request to continue that to September 16th. So if anyone is on the meeting for that, I'm going to take a vote, motion and a vote from the commission to continue to September 16th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to carry to September 16th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And could you both state your names? I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Bonnie
Bonnie. Can I restate it now?
Bonnie?
Sorry. Bonnie Sparks, aye.
Can I?
Danielson, aye.
And Joanne Zigman, aye.
Okay. Then we have, and I'll read these and only stop at the moment for any continuances. Request for a certificate of compliance for 738 North Carey Street, Lot 1. A notice of intent for Plot 1, Leach Avenue. A notice of intent for Belgravia Avenue. A notice of intent for 166 East Ashland Street. This is one that we've received a request to continue to September 16th. If I could have a motion and the person making the motion, if they could state their name.
Bonnie Sparks, motion to move, I'm sorry, what was the address?
Continue, continue. 166 East Ashland.
To continue 166 East Ashland to the September 16th meeting.
I
Do I
second.
have a second?
Joanne Sigmund, second.
Stephanie, all in favor? Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Sigmund, aye.
And the motion passes. We also have a notice of intent for map 142, plot 383 Quincy Street, with a request to continue to September 16th. Do I have a motion to continue that hearing?
I'm sorry, I need to repeat the address.
It is 383 Quincy Street.
Motion to continue 383 Quincy Street to September 16th.
Joanne Sigmund, second.
All in favor? Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Sigmund, aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, it wasn't added to this agenda for some reason. I did, but not the agenda that ended up going to you. The minutes
Okay,
from 6:17, 6:24, and 7:15.
okay. I'll let people know about that. I'm assuming because this is on here, I'm supposed to read this all. So we have a request to amend order of conditions for West Elm Street Bridge, commission correspondence update for 536 North Quincy Street, an enforcement order update for 57 River Street, and then the commission will be going into executive session with the intent not to return. And those are the items that will be covered by the commission this evening. Okay, so let's proceed with the first item on the agenda.
Can we do the minutes
Your minutes, yes.
before we get
Um,
to hearings?
Sure. Again, I lost my agenda. Just bear with me while I find the agenda again.
Yeah, where is that located via not the tablets? I can never find it. Is it Google Docs?
Google Drive, if you go into your Gmail account and then you click on the box with the 9 dots and go to Drive, there should be then on the left-hand side a shared with me folder.
Yeah, I'm on my phone because I'm on a tablet and a phone. I'm trying to do both at the same time.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
What are the dates of the minutes that we're approving?
6:17, 6:24, and 7:15.
Okay, so the ones that you sent via email, right? Those are the same ones?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so Pam, I had sent you an email that I had a lot of changes. I think I started with the earliest one, and I had several corrections. And as I indicated, it was going to be easier for me to just do them in the file. So I did not have a chance. I was on vacation last week, and I did not have a
Okay,
chance to.
that's fine. I
go
did
back
make
and look
some
at them.
updates I did make some updates, so.
Well, I don't know, did the other commissioners have an opportunity to look through them?
I looked through those three dates and I didn't have any, there were a couple of small changes that I told Pam about. And I'm fine with the three as they stand.
Yeah,
I
I
would-
agree. I checked that this afternoon, and I agree with Joanne that it seemed fine.
Yeah. I would like to reserve the right to review them and look at them again because I did want to make some corrections. So I don't know how you want to do that, Pam. I'm okay with them being published, but I would, rather than voting to accept them, publish them as a draft and then
Okay,
to look at them and make any corrections that are needed.
all right. I can publish them as I can write draft on them and, published them up, but it kind of sets a precedent to putting them up without being accepted, so.
Well, my understanding is they're public record anyway,
Correct.
so if someone wanted to view them, they could. So again, I don't have a problem, and I will try harder to get them reviewed in a more
Yeah,
timely
as long as
fashion.
they say draft.
Yeah,
That's fine.
thank you, Mr. May. Okay, so we have a request for certificate of compliance for 1854 Main Street. And we have Scott Faria.
That's the one we continued, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
September.
It was, see, now I'm looking at a different document. Okay. Okay. Then the next item, the request for certificate of compliance for North Carey Street. Scott, you're on for that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and we have a report. Megan, do you want to go over your findings?
Yes, so briefly, I've been out to the site and reviewed the submitted as-built plan. In general, the as-built plan matches the approved plan. In one case, the built back deck is slightly longer than shown on the approved plan, but it doesn't project out any further, so I wouldn't consider that a large deviation. The one notable deviation I made note of is that
Lost Megan momentarily.
Looks like the grading was that.
first,
There's
Megan, we
your-
lost you for a second there?
yes, so the notable change is that the as-built plan shows two rooftop infiltration chambers that were not shown on the NOI plan. So my recommendation was that documentation be provided for the site soil conditions to confirm that the groundwater elevations were compatible with that installation. And then my second notice was that the shrub layer had been cleared past the approved limit of work. So for about, in some cases, up to the wetlands boundary, the 25-foot had been cleared by hand of the shrub layer of vegetation. And so I had recommended that that be replanted in order to restore that prior to the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Scott, would you?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Faria, Holmgren Engineering. I guess just to go in order with your agent's report, the first issue regarding the infiltration chambers for the rooftops, we did not show them on the notice of intent plan. We definitely should have. They were part of both the subdivision plan and the ZBA plans. And just as a matter of course, it's usually a good idea to try to infiltrate the roof runoff. So we did do two separate systems just so we wouldn't have the entire roof going into one system and perhaps overcharging one area. So we did split the house into two. We have it going on either side. Groundwater observations were done at the time of the subdivision. and found groundwater to be roughly at elevation 217, which is about 4 to 4.5 feet down from the finished grade that's out there now. We went out and witnessed the excavation for the installation of these chambers. The bottom of the chambers were roughly at elevation 218.5. So above groundwater as you would want them. So I think we're in good shape as far as that goes. And then Megan's comment about the shrub layer, the applicant did go in there and removed downed trees, just trees that were dead or that had fallen over. In doing so, he also removed just about all the shrub layer, to be honest with you. So when Megan brought that to our attention, we had a meeting out there. We had Brad Holmes, our wetlands consultant, come out with us, and he looked at it. At that point, the shrub layer had already started to revegetate itself. So his feeling was if we just left it alone through next spring, it would be back to the way it was this previous spring. So in order to do that, I spoke to Megan about it when this first came up. We'd like to, instead of getting a certificate of compliance, we'd like to amend that tonight and just get a partial certificate. That way a closing can go forward that they have scheduled. We've got homeowners that are hoping to move in sometime in September with the partial certificate. You can still get an occupancy permit and move in, and it still gives the commission the power over the applicant to make sure that we do everything right in getting the final certificate of compliance.
I have a question for Pam. Pam, does the building department require a certificate of compliance or partial certificate of compliance before issuing an occupancy permit, or do they just require a sign off from the Conservation Commission or agent?
We do not get notified of occupancy permits. We're out of it once the building permit issues. The only way we have input in this is if we physically go over and tell them that there's an issue on a site and please don't issue.
Okay, and the reason that I'm asking is because, one, I know that closings can move forward even when a certificate of compliance or a partial has not been issued. Generally what happens is there is money held back in escrow to ensure that the work does get completed, by the seller. So I am always very hesitant to issue even a partial certificate of compliance for work that was supposed to be done as part of an order of conditions and it doesn't get done. I'm particularly not inclined to issue even a partial certificate of compliance when work was done that was not permitted and needs to be rectified. And in this case, the applicant is suggesting revegetation and only a year's worth of monitoring. I would find it surprising. I don't know. I wasn't out there beforehand, so I don't know what the vegetation maturity was. But again, depending on what's there, I find it hard to believe that it would be of the same caliber and the same rate of growth as what was there before it was cleared. I think our agent recommended that the material actually be replaced. And then I think the commission, because this actually is a violation of the order of conditions, it would be justified for the commission to require a monitoring period for regrowth, which generally is a minimum of 3 years with monitoring reports.
We did, Madam Chair, we did have, Brad did submit a memo that speaks to that. He didn't say to wait for 3 years, but, we did, like I said, we had Brad go out there. He came up with a site review memo dated August 18th that he submitted to your agent. And I believe he talked to Megan about it as well. just to talk about the regeneration that has gone on already and what he feels would be adequate going forward.
Okay, I'm going to ask the other commissioners to either ask questions or make comments, and then Megan, I'd like you to weigh in again. Bonnie, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, so I definitely support a 3-year observation period, considering that we've got spicebush and glossy buckthorn that had been cut down. And so the bittersweet is an invasive, which I'm not too concerned about, but that spicebush is, that's definitely not going to regen in a year. And I will, I openly defer to you, Stephanie, on the partial, as I know that that is, it basically ties our hands. So I agree with you on that. But I would like to hear from Megan as well.
Okay, Joanne, do you have any questions or comments before Megan weighs in again?
So, so I know that Mr. Faria has stated that they did do the checking of the groundwater levels for this infiltration system that they've put in. I'm wondering whether we have received documentation of that, Megan?
Just me telling you tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we feel that's sufficient?
I don't feel that's sufficient. That has nothing to do with you, Scott, but I think it sets a bad precedent if we don't actually have documentation that underpins some of these decisions that we're making.
Sure.
I would like to see documentation of that. And also, my concern is that, and again, I'll defer on Megan, to Megan on this, because botany is definitely not a strength of mine, but I do find it hard to believe that within a year's time, the shrub layer will regenerate to the point at which it was before it was cut down by the applicant. And also, what powers do we have once the purchaser moves in to ensure that that actually happens, unless we withhold a certificate of compliance? So I'll take everybody else's lead on that, but that's what I'm thinking at the moment. So those are my thoughts.
Could I just jump in for 1 second, Madam Chair? I'm not claiming, certainly, and Brad's not claiming that in a year's time, next April, that it's going to look like it did this past April. We're saying that at that point, it'll be established, and you can assume over a period of time, a year, another 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, it's going to look like it always did. We're certainly not saying that it's going to look like it did 3 months ago.
I think what Joanne is reiterating is the concern that I have, that with a partial certificate of compliance, unless there's something held back in escrow that is a motivator to ensure the work is complete and the restoration occurs, that everyone's going to forget or walk away or think everything's fine because now the new owners have moved into the house. They're going to feel they're not responsible for it. And the issue will never raise its head again until someone goes to sell the property at some point in time. And there is someone finds that the title isn't fully clean on the property because only a partial was issued. And that's if the underwriter's doing their due diligence and the title lawyers are doing their due diligence, which may not be the case. Whereas if there's no certificate of compliance, again, there is a process, and that gives the commission far greater assurance that the restoration is going to be done and be successful.
Right. I mean, just to answer that, Madam Chair, and I agree with everything you said, the only other thing you have is the developer's good name and 30 years of work in the city that he's not going to walk away from it. But I understand there's precedent to be set, and everybody has to play with the same set of rules. But he certainly.
And I'm not opposed to, you used the term, Madam Chairperson, an escrow. I would use the term a bond. I'm I'm obliged to stay with the property for a year as I have to provide a builder's warranty, and I have no plans of leaving. I also have an adjoining house that I have to go through the same process. I don't mind posting something if that's the control you're looking for, a bond of good faith. I don't have the ability to lose money, so if that would help, I would gladly consider that.
The bond, but the city, while that can be a motivator, the city can't do anything with the bond if the work never gets done. So
But the
I
work-
understand that.
Isn't the work that's proposed a combination of regeneration and revisiting? I think the suggestion made by the agent was replanting of shrub layer. So I think the money is that surety, and I don't think magically in April or May or June of next year, until we can revisit the matter, we'll do it. And I'm still within that warranty period. So I don't know that an attorney doing a closing who would require either a full compliance, which we're not going to get, or a partial, which we would need, holding an escrow is going to give you any confidence. But if that's what you want, I can agree to that.
Yeah, it actually does. I mean, again, I've had over 14 years experience. Actually, I hate to say it, it's around 20 years of experience, and that is the best assurance that the work.
And I have no problem. I thought the thing you wanted was control. That's why I had mentioned a bond where the city is holding the money. But I can have the closing attorney for this sale hold an escrow.
Yes.
And I don't have any problem. I know after the conclusion of this meeting, depending on the outcome, I have to then first visit with the prospective buyers of 728 and advise them of its outcome. I did give them a heads up that there were some conversation that needed to occur. I can assure the board my intention wasn't to eviscerate the area. What's not mentioned is some of the cleanup that occurred in that area, removal of 2 campsites, dismantling of kind of a constructed walkway that's on my side of the stone wall that kind of ran parallel for a little bit to the city's property, which has a walkway within the same wetland area. But again, I would agree to an escrow, and the purpose of it is just to stay connected with the process.
Madam Chair, do you want him to place an escrow with the closing attorney, or are you
No.
going to give us a check that we deposit?
No, the town isn't holding anything. The escrow I'm talking about is between the buyer and the seller. And it's in lieu of a certificate of compliance. And once the certificate of compliance is issued by the commission, the attorneys release the money in escrow back to the seller. So that is what we're considering here. One of the other things I forgot to mention, and again, I think Megan definitely would bring this up. So sorry, Megan, if you were going to. I understand, one, Bonnie or Joanne mentioned the bittersweet. There's also buckthorn, glossy buckthorn on the site, which is an invasive. So we would want monitoring of the invasives and management of the invasives to ensure that they aren't overtaking the native plant material. So again, Megan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I can just follow up and say that concern about the invasives is one of the reasons why I originally suggested a replanting plan. So, you know, I did review Brad's plan, and from being out there, I can see that there is, you know, starting to be some regeneration of the shrub layer. And the concern I brought up with Brad is that we know there is buckthorn and bittersweet in the shrub layer to begin with. So it's not a matter of it being introduced, but it is the idea that when you disturb an area and you remove, you know, an entire vegetative layer, then the species that are going to re-inhabit and proliferate are more likely to be those invasives. So yes, there is already buckthorn and bittersweet out there, but my concern was that if it passively revegetates, would there now be a greater density of those invasives than there were originally? And so my reasoning for suggesting the replanting was, one, to have some more control over what shrubs go in there. And also from my view, I thought it would be the faster method in terms of talking about monitoring. I would have assumed that monitoring a passive revegetation would require a longer period of monitoring than a more active approach. And so that was the basis of my original recommendation to consider a replanting plan to get the shrub layer reestablished.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else to add?
So with the alternative to escrow would be if the applicant would replant actively now, the layer disturbed, or is that?
Again, I wasn't thinking of issuing a partial certificate of compliance with replanting the shrubs. I think the replanting the shrubs just would lessen the monitoring period of time, which is what Megan's talking about.
Gotcha.
I am still not inclined to vote in favor of issuance of a partial or full certificate of compliance.
Well, I'm not a closing attorney. I'm pretty confident that without that, I don't know that an escrow necessarily allows a sale of a property to occur.
Again, I'm not trying to be contradictory, Mr. Morrissey, but I have extensive experience with this, and it is done on a very regular basis.
May I also add, I believe Brad's recommendation, and I understand the idea of planting. I don't know that it would necessarily get the objective if it were done with the onset of fall, but it'd probably be something that would be better served come the spring. I guess that's what I could explain to a closing attorney in terms of the use or purpose of the escrow. Not that I get the benefit of it until I get a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, actually, this is the better time to plant because your weeds and your invasives won't be in active growth phase, and your root systems, if you plant before the end of October in particular, if we have a very warm winter, it could be through the middle of November, but if you planted, I wouldn't plant now, but if you planted in mid-September to the end of October, the root systems will start to establish, and any seed mix that may be put down will, it may start to establish, it may sit dormant, and then in the spring, you'll get new growth before the invasives start to take hold. And it will, so it's more likely we'll have, because this is supposed to be the wet season, and spring is generally the wet season, it will require less irrigation to ensure success.
I'm listening to what you're saying. Focusing on invasives, when we filed our notice of intent, great attention was made to Japanese knotweed.
Mm-hmm.
And although I can't claim, because it's a very insidious invasive species, 100% success, until nothing shows up for 2-3 years, we've eradicated it from even getting close to this area. Shouldn't we do the same type of thing with the other invasive that you now have a concern with that was part of the natural shrubland?
That would be desirable.
It would be more difficult because in the case of the knotweed in question was in a fill pile behind the old barn. It hadn't yet moved all the way back to the work area, so it was eradicated as a preventative measure to prevent it from spreading back further onto the site. In the case of the buckthorn, it was in the shrub layer, so it's a question of, it's less of a preventative of keeping it from getting in there. It's already in there. It was ideally the case of we didn't want to give it an opportunity to proliferate, and unfortunately the clearing has probably created an opportunity, for it to get a bit more of a hold, but the buckthorn is already in there. It's not a case of we were trying to keep it out.
Right, but there are two things with the Japanese knotweed that need to be mentioned. One was the recommendation that we basically attack the rhizome in the root layer, which we did. That required an entire excavation of where it previously thrived. Secondly, it was recommended to allow any growth that took place to, and I recall it was either September or October, but that was an ideal time to do a topical herbicide, which I hired a gentleman by the name of Chris Pollington to do it. That combination of events really took the matter. And other than a scattered one here or there where you basically take out the whole root, we got at it. I know you don't want the use of herbicides, I suppose, in the 25-foot buffer. I'm just trying to think of some other way that we can, in good faith, not allow the invasive species to propagate.
Again, I think what Megan was suggesting, and again, I'll defer to Bonnie, because again, I think she has more experience than I do, but replanting the native material and in a quantity that helps to, I'm going to say overcrowd, but prevent an opportunity for the invasives to gain more control of the site.
This is exactly going to be your best bet. It's the bittersweet and the buckthorn they can be kind of like squashed out. If they don't get enough of the light in the spring, then they're not likely to sprout. So ground covers that are natively around here, like Virginia creeper, unfortunately poison ivy, and I know a lot in the wetlands here, we also have jewelweed. And those things are, especially jewelweed, is very, very easy to spread by seed. That's how it does it on its own. It's an herbaceous perennial, or it's a self-seeding annual. And something like that would help prevent the invasives from coming back. So I think giving a layer in the fall, and if we've got some shrubs that can be manually planted, but seeding would be insanely easy. That's a very, very easy thing to do, is to overseed with the native species that will quickly take, rather than trying to individually attack, because at this point it's already been cleared. So you'd have to wait for the bittersweet and the buckthorn to regrow to even know where it's coming up from in order to attack it with any kind of herbicide anyway, which is that gives us another 2 to 3 seasons of time where you have to wait.
Stephanie, may I?
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, and I think that's the point of it. These invasives were in that shrub layer before. I think really the simple solution and the way forward is just to replant the natives in the fall and hope that they overpower the invasives. So I don't think the invasives are the issue here. I think it's just re-shrubbing the area, and doing that with natives is, I think, from my point of view, what I would like to see happen. I think a good way forward.
Okay. I think we have probably covered all bases on this at this point. And we are ready to move forward for a motion. Do I have a motion from the commission?
I don't know how to word it. Yeah.
So does the motion get worded with that escrow in it, or how does that work, Stephanie?
Yeah, there are a couple things. One, I don't want to presume on behalf of all the commissioners, but I think what I'm hearing is that the commission is inclined not to issue a certificate of compliance at this point, and want to see the disturbed area revegetated with native material, including an overseeding of an appropriate mix for the area. And I think maybe between Bonnie and Megan, you can help help Mr. Morrissey with what that should be. And with a monitoring period of 3 years with annual reports. I would also be amenable to, within that 3-year period, if the reports are coming back and showing that the area is flourishing and the new growth is very strong, that the commission could consider issuing a certificate of compliance at that time. And also, I think what you want in that motion is that Mr. Morrissey provide documentation of the soil conditions for the infiltration area. Does that cover it all?
I believe so. So I'll make a motion. So oh, hold on. Sorry. Let me find my note. Too many pieces of paper. So, so the request this evening was for a partial certificate of, no, the request today was for a certificate of compliance. Okay. So, so my motion is to deny the request for a certificate of compliance. I would like to see the applicant document the groundwater levels that were mentioned beforehand, as well as revegetate the natives and monitor them for 3 years. So
In the infiltration area also?
That was where the groundwater levels were in the infiltration
Okay.
area?
right.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'm sorry, did you say with the 3-year monitoring and an annual report, Joanne?
Yes.
Okay, then I second. There's a lot on this one.
All in favor? Danielson, aye?
Sparks, aye.
Zygmunt, aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, the next item on the agenda is notice of intent for Plot 1 Leach Avenue. And Scott, you're here for that one also.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. For Plot 1 Leach Ave, you folks may remember it was on your last agenda back in July. I think we had everything out except for the erosion control that was requested to be placed around the lot, basically around the excavation, and the silt sacks to be put in the catch basins. The applicant did it the next day. I sent pictures ahead to your agent that Friday, before the weekend, and I think that was it. So right now they've got the silt sock that was there, which was kind of beat up, and in addition to that, they put up a silt fence around the perimeter of the work.
Megan?
Yes, so I can confirm I went out to the site after the erosion controls went in. I also went out last week just to check on them. And I can confirm they are in good condition, and the silt sack inlet control as of last week appeared to be in good condition and not full of sediment. So it appears to be either maintained or otherwise the sediment is staying out of the road now. So at this point then, I believe those erosion issues exacerbating the issues on the site have been dealt with. I did follow up once again with the city engineer just to get his final say, confirming that he believes the proposed site plan is appropriately graded in order to not exacerbate the flooding issues in the neighborhood. And he did confirm that he believes once properly graded, the site should not be affecting the neighbors. And so with that, based on what I've seen, the site plan is proposed to mitigate the fill that's being proposed, and so is providing compensatory storage under the Wetlands Protection Act making the presumption that it's filling bordering land subject to flooding. So going forward, in my last report, I made some recommendations for special conditions because it is vital that this site be graded properly. It is currently backfilled and not appropriately storing water as it is designed to. And so it's vital that that grading be completed. And so some of the special conditions that I recommended included that no fill piles and backfill that are inactive be stored on the site, particularly during heavy precipitation events and not more than 24 hours. Sediment and debris shall be removed from the pavement in the right-of-way and from around the catch basin on a weekly basis as needed to keep the street clean and to keep that catch basin clean. That the project manager and site contractor shall sign a certificate of understanding acknowledging these conditions, because again, it is vitally important that whoever's going to be working on that site understand how important sediment control and proper grading is to this project. And finally, I recommend a condition that the applicant shall receive their certificate of compliance before they receive their certificate of occupancy. So suggesting a condition where we work with the building department to make sure that we have approval with an as-built, that the site is graded according to this plan, and that we make sure and work with the building department that the occupancy permit is not issued until we've confirmed that proper grading.
Okay, I have no further questions or comments. Do either of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments?
I have none.
Negative here.
Okay, do I have a motion to issue an order of conditions with the conditions outlined by our agent?
Yes,
Stephanie, I believe we
Need
haven't
to
closed the
close the
hearing. so
hearing.
you
Oh,
call for
sorry.
Public
And I don't
comment
know if
first.
there's anybody here.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for the reminder.
I don't know if
Um,
there's anybody here.
Yeah, do we
can
have anyone from the public? If you are participating via computer, just raise your hand. If not, it was *9 on your phone. Okay, we have Bruce Cardozo. And I don't think I can.
I can. He did.
Okay,
He can speak now.
Bruce, could you identify yourself, where you live, and what your question is?
Hi, I'm Bruce Cardozo. I'm representing my father, Roberto Cardozo. He has a property at 57 River Street, Brockton, Mass.
Oh,
02322.
wrong thing.
Oh, we are talking about the project at 1 Leach Avenue right now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I overheard. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. We will get to you in a while. Thank you.
Should I
Thank
stay
you.
on? Okay. All
Sure,
right.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
please stay on. We will discuss
Good.
57 River Street as its own.
Good.
topic.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no one else with any comments, do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Joanne, I make a motion to close the hearing.
Bonnie Sparks, I second.
All in favor? Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Do I have a motion to issue an order of conditions, including the conditions outlined in our agent's report and as discussed this evening?
Yeah, so Joanne here, I make a motion to issue a order of conditions with the special conditions as outlined in the conservation agent's report.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
And motion passes.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for Plot 2 Belgravia Avenue.
All right, Rebecca's. Where did Rebecca go?
She's right. I see her.
I'm moving people to panelists.
And Joe Coley is there. Okay, there we go. One's unmuted. Okay. Again, Megan, I am going to ask you to start. I understand that some additional information was provided and you did issue a report on the 17th. Do you
Yes, so to
want to summarize?
we received a report from Silva Engineering, basically providing the calculations for stormwater capacity improvements to the intermittent stream that would allow them to meet the post-runoff volumes that Beta Group was concerned about. So Phil did review those calculations, and at this point, he believes that the proposed stream improvement calculations would satisfy the stormwater standards. And so his comment going forward was that the commission consider the impacts of the work relative to the stream. So the proposed capacity increase would have a positive effect on the stormwater capacity of that stream, but in order to issue an order of conditions for that stream work, we need to adequately quantify and describe the impacts of that work and the mitigation of any work. And so that's what my report focused on. So basically we received calculations of, how the capacity of the stream needed to be increased. And so what I tried to do is estimate what that means in terms of impacts. And so I came up with a conservative quantification in that if they're proposing improvements along 425 feet of the stream, then in terms of bank, we're looking at a maximum of 850 linear feet impacts to stream. And then assuming a 4-foot width bottom channel, which is sort of the proposed, I believe, after. So regardless of how wide the stream is now, the proposed calculations are based on a 4-foot channel bottom. So then again, along 425 feet, I estimated a conservative 1,700 foot impact in terms of land underwater. And so again, working off of that, then the work would need to meet the performance standards for bank and land underwater. So for example, the performance standards related to water capacity in both cases, I would assume since the goal is to improve water capacity, then this designed improvements would be meeting those standards. But I also, again, listed that the other standards include physical stability of the banks, ground and surface water quality. So physical stability has to do with, what are the slopes going to be? How are they going to be established? Stabilized, similarly, ground and surface water quality. That's where you get into sedimentation control. And again, stabilizing and, working under conditions to prevent discharge of disturbed soils into the stream. And then finally, both resource areas include performance standards related to wildlife habitat functions, which is why I've brought up, the importance of quantifying what the vegetative impacts are going to be. So as Phil pointed out in his report, the stream is not a consistent width throughout. So in order to meet the proposed calculations, it's presumably the stream's going to have to be widened in places. And so that's going to require a variable removal of vegetation to the point where it's moving beyond the bank into the surrounding area. So we are looking at potential removal of, multiple layers from everything from ground cover to the tree layer. And so my concern then is Silver Engineering did provide a follow-up narrative addressing some of these comments sort of in a general way in terms of, how banks will generally be stabilized, that the vegetation work can be done by hand. And so I think that helps address some of the performance standards, but I believe my concern still in terms of trying to come up with how to condition this and actually issue, the order of conditions with special conditions. Part of their report says that the details of the channel restoration plan would be submitted and approved by the conservation agent prior to proceeding with the work. And so my concern with that would be mainly two things. One, if we issue an order of conditions with that plan as a condition, I'm not sure what the timeline or mechanism would be to be able to review that plan. And I also know from recent experience with Mass DEP and how they're reviewing stream work projects, my concern would be that if we issue an order of conditions with the information from this narrative worked into the special conditions, but not shown on a plan or not made very specific, my concern would be that Mass DEP themselves might follow up with an appeal and a request for a superseding order of conditions. I just know, for example, Mass DEP recently, as I stated in my report, they denied issuing even a file number for a filing to do stream work in Brockton because it was not explicit enough in its impacts and description of things like vegetation removal and debris removal. So I'm just anticipating that if they're denying issuing file numbers for stream work, I would think that there might be questioning of if we issue a order of conditions without, very specific impacts in terms of quantifying and widths of, if we're expanding the stream, what is that width of vegetation removal that's now going to become the new stream bank, and so on. My concern is if that's not shown on a plan, then it could very well be complicated by an appeal from Mass DEP. And again, just personally in terms of the mechanism of when we would get to review that plan and approve it, if it's provided to us after the order of conditions is issued, would be a concern for me.
Mhm. Okay.
I don't believe you can approve anything once you close the hearing, though.
So I concur with Megan's conclusions. I think that in order to understand, why don't we, I'm sorry. Rebecca or Joe, would you like to respond?
Joe, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, so we were hoping that the letter from Mrs. Silver last week would give some comfort that we have all intentions of providing what the commission wants, but Megan's comments about DEP and a superseding is not what we want to face in the future. So we would like to find some compromise that we can move forward and still provide you the info you need to get this safely through DEP's review.
So in response to that, Rebecca, I found, and this is one of the concerns I've had with this. I'm sorry, there are loud motorcycles going by. I don't know if you can hear them, but I can certainly. One of my concerns, and again, this project was already underway when this current composition of the board first convened back in November. Is that when it was? It's been a long time. Is there's just such a lack of specificity on what is going to be the work that's going to be done. I mean, how much disturbance is there going to be? What is the restoration? Megan talked a lot about stabilization. What is the grading of the banks? Megan, when you said a 4-foot stream bed, were you talking width or depth? Do we know what the depth of the?
I mean, I would defer to Rebecca to correct me, but my understanding is right now it's variable. So what's shown in their report is what they're trying to reach. And my understanding is that based on their calculations, the goal is the 4-foot width stream bed, and that based on the depth, they say the depth now, I believe, is 2 to 3 feet, and they want it to be 3 feet throughout. So it's looking at some potential degree of debris removal and excavation to get to that 4-foot width, 3-foot deep along that 425 feet. And Rebecca can correct me if I'm
No,
off.
that's, that we had a contractor go out, the one who has done work for DPW on some of these streams, and his assessment was it's about 2 to 3 feet. It's full of sediment. It's full of trash, tires, shopping carriages. Those things have collected the sediment over time, and yeah, we need to get them out of there. Maintain a 3-foot depth.
And the letter from Mr. Sylvia did not detail how the work was going to be done and overseen.
Correct. We issued that letter the night of the meeting, well, last week's supposed meeting that didn't happen. So we were hoping to have a conversation about what the commission would like to see in order to develop and fully implement the plan.
Well, I think we'd like a proposal on how the work will be conducted. Where is, as your dredging material, where is it going to be stored? How is it going to be disposed? How are you, I mean, this is 425 feet wide. How many days is it projected to take to do this clearing? What are you going to do to protect the stream or any stockpiles if there's a severe storm event while you're doing the work? I mean, there's just, this is very much a, here's generally, to me, it's an idea. You've expressed an idea about cleaning out the stream, and then here's generally how we're going to do it, but not getting down into the detail that's needed when you're working in a resource area.
Well, like you, this project fell on our lap, and so we are trying to make the best of it as we move along. So yes, you are presented with an idea. If you like the idea, we will further implement a more detailed documentation.
Okay, that is what we're at. That's what I'm asking for. It's what Megan is asking for. And again, I will ask my other commissioners, my fellow commissioners, for their comments. Joanne?
So I think this is a really hard project.
Joanne, I don't know if it's just me, but your volume is a little low right now. I don't know if you
can. A little bit better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm really struggling to identify how this project can actually be conditioned to meet the performance standards set out in the wetland regulations. I think that the plan really relies on the capacity of this stream to take away the water. And at the moment, there is no real plan for how to address the immediate increase in that stream's capacity. And beyond that, there's a question of long-term operations and management of this entire system. On the site plan, itself, it talks about catch basin maintenance and issues that have to be checked on, you know, in some cases 4 times a year. It says that these sump basins need to be cleaned out. Is that going to fall on, you know, is that going to be the responsibility of the city? Has the city committed to that? And, or will this be the responsibility of the new house that's proposed right next to it? I don't think that's the case, right? And similarly with the stream, it might be hypothetically dredged now to take the water away that we would need it to in order to fulfill this plan. But in 10 years' time, will it need to be dredged again? And whose responsibility is that going to be? Is that going to fall on the city? And will the city commit to that now for this long-term operation and maintenance? And also, I'm concerned that in Beta's report, the peer review, if you give me one moment just to bring it up, where am I? In the peer review report, our peer reviewer states that the project meets the standard at the down gradient project point of analysis. However, there is an increase to the abutting property with reported flooding issues just down gradient of the proposed detention basin. Increases in peak rate and volume of runoff have a high potential to adversely impact this abutter. So, I mean, do you have permission from the property owner at 41, what's the number? I think it's 41 Herman to, you know, be discharging all this additional water onto his or her property as well? I honestly don't see how this could be conditioned to actually meet the performance standards. I think we're all trying really hard to do so and to resolve it, but I honestly just don't see how it can be done.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Bonnie?
I support what Joanne brought up, but I think what we're doing now is basically asking the questions that will be addressed in the actual, words fail me, what will be presented to us at a future date. So like we said, this is the idea. Now we're going to address, hopefully this will be able to be addressed by Ms. Baptista and whoever she is working with. But beyond that, I don't have anything additional to add.
And if I could just add, I'm not sure if this has come up yet, but Joanne reminded me about when it comes to the abutter's permission. And I think, you know, if we're going to go forward with this avenue, we do have to keep in mind that this order of conditions will then extend onto abutter's properties, like in order to access that stream. That's through the abutting properties. So
they will need to be co-applicants.
Yes.
Yeah, like this.
That raises a really good question. Does the, I would think that those abutters would need to sign on to the application at this point before we could even continue debating or hearing the details. Or at the same time that's provided, their sign on to the application would need to be received. Megan, is that?
Say we can't make, yes. Certainly we can't issue anything or consider issuing anything unless
The abutters have signed on. So I was actually going to ask if you wanted to continue the hearing so that you could provide this information to the commission and continue the process. But it's either that or again, if this is the proposal, I don't think we could do anything but that.
I request that we continue so that I can discuss with the client and review our options.
Okay, and our next meeting is the 16th. Was that the, yes, September 16th? Do I have a motion to continue the hearing to September 16th?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing to September 16th. It's Joanne.
Bonnie Sparks, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, I'm dealing with multiple pieces of paper here. I'm trying to get my continuances straight. The next item on the agenda is,
Madam
was
Chair,
the notice of intent, which is continued, yes.
there wasn't a butter as an attendee and he had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Do we need to reopen the hearing or how does that
well,
work?
we haven't closed it. We can,
Okay.
Oh, I think he's,
it
it was Paul, but I believe he, okay.
yeah, he just went away. Is
He'll
he-
probably email in the office.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Well, in any case, yeah. And it looks like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my. Okay. All right, so the 166 East Ashland was continued, 383 Quincy Street was continued. So we are on to the request to amend an order of conditions for West Elm Street Bridge. And do we have someone?
Magdalena.
I never saw Magdalena on the list.
She actually had to run to another meeting with the Reading Conservation Commission. So this is Jason Fleetstra. I'm sitting in for CM Smith.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about the project?
Well, this is an emergency extension on the project that we're working on now. The West Elm Street bridge that carries Salisbury Brook underneath West Elm Street is currently being replaced with a new four-sided box culvert. And when Brockton Department of Public Works was doing some lead work for that, rerunning a new sewer line, they had a dump truck fall through the culvert roof just north of that in the Manning Towers parking lot. So we have an emergency contract that will extend the work to continue working north and make that repair.
Okay, Megan, do you want to summarize your report for us?
Yes, so again, this is a request for an amended order of conditions. So they do have an issued order of conditions for replacing that bridge portion of the culvert, and that work is currently underway. And so this additional repair work, again, is just north of where the current work is going on. And they're proposing basically to replace the top deck of the culvert and then the top of the abutments, so the tops of the walls. And according to my reading of the plans, the current footings are going to remain in place, so they won't be replacing in the entire walls. So the additional impacts, temporary impacts that would be quantified here is an additional temporary impact to 225 feet of bank. And in this case, bank is sort of just a by law description of where the mean high water level is relative to the abutment and the earth on the other side of the abutment. So it would be a temporary impact in terms of removing that top of the abutment and replacing it. So it would be considered a temporary impact to bank, even though the bank is currently the abutment itself. Similarly, they're proposing additional temporary impacts to land underwater. in order to divert the river using a similar sandbag cofferdam that was approved to divert the river just downstream where they're doing the culvert replacement. So again, not permanent impacts to the stream bed itself, but they're again proposing to cofferdam to divert the river while they replace the abutments. And so based on that, and given the need for the repairs and the proximity to the existing work, I think it's appropriate to consider this as an amended order of conditions rather than requiring a special or a additional NOI. And so I think that the order of conditions could be amended to add those additional temporary impacts I just outlined, to add this additional plan set to the plan of record under order of conditions, and then to add the proposed mitigation measures that are already in the order of conditions. We could add those to the order of conditions.
Okay, I just have a question because I can honestly say I do not think I've been down West Elm Street since the lockdown. So is this impeding traffic at this point or use of the roadway?
Currently, the roadway is closed for the replacement of this bridge. The actual the precast structure arrives tomorrow, and once that's there, progress will be pretty quick to finish it up. There was a deadline to have this done by Labor Day, and the road reopened.
Okay. Bonnie, Joanne, any comments, questions?
My only question is the additional, this is the wrong word, but the diversion of the water flow, having two of those, is that going to cause any problems or need any additional, anything that's not listed here? Because I don't know what goes into it, but it sounds like it could be potentially problematic.
So the only plan would be to divert water to one side of the channel that's there so that work can be performed in the dry on the one abutment at a time. So that it would only be diverting it one way. And then once that side is complete, then the sandbags would be arranged such that the water be diverted to the other side.
And that won't impact the work that is, I'm assuming, paused or continuing down the river or
Because
stream?
of the deadline, the work that's underway now will be complete before this begins.
Oh,
And then
okay.
they'll just continue to work their way north.
That answers that question. Thank you very much.
Joanne?
I have no questions.
Okay, so I don't keep doing this. Any members of the public who are participating in this have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Do I have, this is a hearing. We did receive a butter proof of mailing.
Yes.
I've asked that in the beginning. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Bonnie Sparks, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye?
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Great, okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next item on the agenda is ongoing business, and we have 536 North Quincy Street, a correspondence update.
Sorry, Stephanie, did we have to actually vote to amend the order?
Did we not do that? We just voted to close, right?
Right.
Do I have a motion to issue an amended order with the conditions stated by Megan?
Yes, so Joanne here, I'll make a motion to issue the amended order of conditions with the recommendations outlined in the conservation agent's report.
Bonnie Sparks, I second.
Okay, and for discussion, and I don't think Megan's outline includes adding the additional plan set. Add the emergency parking lot as a plan of record. Yes, it does. Okay. All right. All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
So voted. Okay. All right, now we can move on to 536 North Quincy Street.
Okay, so we have someone as an attendee with the phone number 508-944-6184. So I'm not sure if that is the property owner, Bill Serra. So I'm wondering if it is, if he could press, I believe it's *9 to raise his hand. And it looks like he has. So let me see if I can add him to this.
Yeah, looks like you've done it. We just need to unmute. There we go.
Hello?
Hi, we hear
Hello?
you.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, we're
Hi.
going to have Megan. Megan, you're going to give a summary.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, but if the gentleman who just joined us, if you could just identify yourself before Megan gives us a summary of this
Sure. This
item.
is Bill Serra, S-E-R-R-A, and I'm 536 North Quincy Street.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Okay, Megan?
Thank you.
Yes, so this correspondence came about because our office has received via the building department and via ward counselor Jack Lally, a number of complaints about equipment and fill being brought on to this property in question, 536 North Quincy Street. So I've been out to the property with Mr. Serra to take a look, and as he explained, he has an acquaintance who has a tree company who brings trees from off-site onto the site where they're stored and cut up and then eventually taken back off-site. And so when I went out there, I did confirm that that appears to be what is back there. There wasn't any other heavy equipment. There was the piles of trees in the rear of the property. And so in terms of the complaints from the abutters relative to fill being brought in, I didn't see evidence of any new fill piles. So as part of my review of the property, I went to the back of the site to look at where the existing fill slope moves down into the wetlands. And so I observed the fill slope looked a bit rocky, so it didn't look particularly old or particularly new. So I'd asked Mr. Serra how old that fill slope is. And I believe he said it was about 4 years old. And so that was my only encounter with what I would consider potential fill on the site. But in terms of what was actually going on within the past month or so, I only documented the storage of the trees and the wood that appeared to be from off-site. And so I had sent a follow-up letter, again, inviting Mr. Serra to come share this with the commission and to confirm this activity that's been going on in the site.
So, Mr. Serra, thank you, Megan. Megan provided us with some aerial photographs that one was taken in 2013 and the other in 2019. And this is kind of to Megan as well. It looks like there has been clearing beyond the area that was previously cleared in 2013. And I'm going to guess, I don't know how large the lot is, and these aerial pictures do not show a scale, but it looks like it's 50, at least 50 feet, maybe 100 feet. Megan, I'm guessing. What has been going on the property? And again, you said there was some fill. The fill that Megan observed was within the last 4 years. What has been going on as far as earth movement and clearing on the property?
Well, are you addressing me?
Yes.
Yes. So what I've been doing is, like I said, I've been lucky enough to have a customer of mine dropping off log lengths, and I've been cutting, splitting, chipping, shredding, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. They're big. It's a lot. And I've been doing it for about 4 years now, and I try to keep it clean so that I don't twist an ankle or anything like that. You know, I don't want to fall while I'm,
So the
working on it.
the clearing was done to facilitate this, this logging processing operation that you're conducting at the site?
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm trying not, I don't want to fall or anything, and I try not to. My weekends are Sunday, Mondays, so I try not to run anything, before 10 o'clock in the morning on my weekends, and I've just been doing it for quite a while now. I've been lucky enough that he's been dropping it off, not charging me, and if I can sell it, then I'll try.
Okay. So Megan, my follow-up question is, looking at the area that is cleared, what is the distance of the clearing to the wetland line? Do you have an idea?
So based on my visit there, basically, historically, I assume the site was originally raised up along with the road. And so as you move back, basically where the existing fill slope is to date, it drops off pretty steeply. And just from looking at it, based on the vegetation and the change in grade, you're probably looking at that it drops straight from the fill slope into BBW.
Okay, and it's cleared up to the fill slope?
There are still some canopy trees going up to the fill slope, so I wouldn't say it's entirely cleared. There are still trees along the slope. The slope itself, again, towards the edge, it looked a bit rocky, which makes it harder, to age, which was why I made the comment asking how old that fill slope was, because it's difficult to tell, if that was the historic fill slope or if it might have been expanded within the past few years.
Right. So, Mr. Serra, are you aware that any work done within 100 feet of a wetland resource area requires a permit from the Conservation Commission?
I'm aware of that now. I didn't, I'm aware of that now, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to have one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie and Joanne. Again, it appears if the clearing, the area looks as though it was vegetated to where it's cleared. So we know there's fill material there. So Mr. Serra, in addition to clearing, did you bring in fill material to
Just
grade out that area?
the brush and the trees and all that stuff that comes with all those logs, and I try to push it over.
So where did the rocks come from?
That's part of the land. It's been that way ever since I can remember.
Okay, but have you done any grading on the site?
Well, like I said, I do push stuff around, just like I say, to stop me from, because when you're cutting and splitting and chopping and chipping up all that stuff, it definitely gets piley up there, So I do push stuff around. I'm not sure what grading is, but I do clean the area.
Leveling
like right now,
it
it needs to be mowed.
Yeah.
I need to mow it. Hello?
Yes. What kind of equipment are you using when you're clearing it out and cleaning it out and pushing things around?
Oh, well, I got another customer of mine, luckily enough, has a, has what they call a ramrod.
Mr. Serra, I need to call a break for a minute because I don't think anyone's home in my house, and I think there's something on the stove that's burning. I will be
Okay.
right back.
Sure, take your time.
Yep. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. I'm back.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so if you could continue.
Okay, so like I say, I have a landscaper back there that he has what they call a ramrod, which is like a power shovel that you stand in, and I use that to push the branches and the chip stuff and the leaves and stuff around.
Okay,
It tears up all the ground while you do it. I don't think it can change any grade or anything, but it's just a little thing. You stand in it.
okay. All right. Joanne and Bonnie.
I have no questions.
Nor do I. I have no questions.
Megan, where do we go from here? I think we need to give, we need to better understand what's happening on the site and give Mr. Serra some guidance on what he can and can't do.
Yes, Stephanie, would you recommend another site visit to revisit the slope?
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So I understand what you're trying to do, Mr. Serra. We want to make sure that you're not in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so Megan, you'll arrange another site visit with Mr. Serra?
Yes, I can do that. Shall I look to schedule with any commission members or?
I was just going to suggest that. Yeah, I'd be happy to attend if I can. Joanne and Bonnie?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know when.
Yeah, so yeah, if we could do that, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, so I'm pretty flexible, so I can propose some times in the upcoming week or so that would work for any commission members and Mr. Serra.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Anytime. Okay.
All right. And again, thank you, Mr. Serra, for joining us and working with us here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Megan will be in-
I'll get a letter or something?
Megan will be in touch.
Yeah, I can call
Okay.
if that's convenient for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 57 River Street. We need to, there he is. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cardozo. Again, Megan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so this was a follow-up letter to an enforcement order that we issued back in June for unpermitted fill and debris being stored in the floodplain to Trout Brook behind 57 River Street. So I originally issued the order to the property owner as was listed on the assessor's database. In the following couple of months, I've checked the database again and I saw that a new owner was listed. So I remailed out our correspondence letter with the enforcement order to the property owner that was listed now on the assessor's database in hopes of reaching someone at the property. And so I believe Mr. Cardoso is here now then to represent the property at 57 River Street.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Cardozo, can you explain what is going on at the property?
Well, it's my father's property, Roberto Cardozo. We spoke last time I spoke with him. I didn't know this was going on, but he did mention that he was gonna cut some trees back there, and actually, like, you know, not remove it or anything, just leave it there where it is, and that was that. But I did not know he would, you know, put debris and dirt there as well. But he understands the order, and he says he will comply with the order. Yeah, that's that.
Okay. And so in Megan's letter dated June 22nd, 2020, as you mentioned, and you said, so can you confirm that the cutting and removal of trees and vegetation has stopped?
Yes, completely. He has stopped cutting vegetation. He's actually gonna go back there and clean up the debris and anything, you know, trash and anything that was there.
Okay, so what I would suggest, Megan, if this works for you, please get in touch with Megan, and can you follow up with Mr. Cardozo and his father on exactly what they need to do to come into compliance?
Yes, I can be available to set up a time. I can meet them out there if they have any questions about what needs to be done. Whatever is the best way to get in contact with them to set up that meeting. I'm available via phone or email.
So Mr. Cardozo, what is the best way to get into?
Phone is fine. Phone,
Do you have a phone number?
sure.
And if you don't want to say it over the line, you can he chat, Pam?
Don't know if there's a private chat.
I actually don't mind. It's okay.
Okay. All right, Megan, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
It's 857-206-4000. That's my phone number. Do you want my father's phone number as well?
Yes, if you believe he's comfortable with sharing it, yes.
Yeah, he's okay. He's okay with it. You ready?
Yes.
It's 857-991-3176.
Okay.
Okay. Are we all set?
Yes, I can follow up. Yeah, I'll follow up within the coming week to give them a chance if they're starting their removal. And again, I can call to set up a time to meet whoever, you know, is responsible for the work out there and see what still needs to be done.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cardoza, that's all for tonight, and thank you very much for coming in
Thank you.
and
Good
joining
night.
the meeting. Good night. Okay. At this point, the commission needs to go into executive session.
Stephanie, may I just before, so on
Oh, yes.
this week's agenda, we were going to discuss the associate positions, which I think had carried over from the previous meeting. Do we want to continue? It's not on the agenda for tonight.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I have it. Oh, yeah. No, I have it. I have it on the tonight's agenda. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm open to it if Bonnie. Yeah. Let's put it done.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we had talked about the potential of having associate members. I think it was at the last meeting. And, as a way to groom people to step in and take over when we have openings, or to help promote interest in being appointed to the commission. And it was suggested I talk to the mayor about it, which I did, and he was very agreeable. So I think at this point, all we need to do is vote to allow associate members, and probably discuss a number that makes sense, and then how we might try to interest people in becoming associate members.
Mhm.
But I'm open, and that's just kind of an opening salvo for discussion, so.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think the Conservation Commission can be intimidating. It involves a lot, and associate members, I think, are a nice entry point for people that think they might want to serve, but feel like they have a huge learning curve ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about it.
I think it's a really good idea, especially given the current scheduling of everything right now. I think the opportunity to have other people learning that will be able to potentially in the future fill in is a monumental relief on the schedule. Things have changed. Everything is kind of wonky right now. So I think it just adds another level of security for keeping things moving smoothly.
Yeah, so the one point I would like to make is associate members of conservation commissioners, commissions do not have voting rights, so they can't help fill quorum when we don't have quorum.
Right.
So we're not going to gain that value. However, again, I think it is a way of getting people interested and at least educated on what the roles and responsibilities are.
And my hope is that what it'll do is, the people who are associate members will then have the opportunity to say, well, I get it now. I'd like to do it now. And they'll already have been, as you said, groomed to doing it. So stepping into the role will be a little less bumpy, and it'll be an easier transition for anyone who might be interested than just kind of jumping in.
Yep. All right, that's great. Do we want to vote tonight? Do you have an idea how many members you think we should initiate?
I think 2 is a good number. I'm kind of thinking having 2 at the same time is good, because if one decides not to continue, there's another one. Like there's basically an overlap of associates in theory. Too many, I think, is just too many people around the table. The maximum number for the commission, I think, is 7 anyway, isn't it? 7?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have a bit of recruitment to do anyhow.
Right.
And I think that we should be very specific about terms as well, too. So I think maybe because they're associates, maybe a term of 1 year is suitable. Assumption being that after 1 year, they'd actually, if there's an opening, move into the actual full role of a commission member.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question? I didn't.
No, those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Yeah.
We missed a Q&A from.
We're all set.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So how are we feeling? 2 associate members for a term of 1 year?
Sounds reasonable to me.
How
How about 2 years?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And
Yeah.
would that provide the option of becoming a full member from there, or?
If there's
Always.
space, yeah, if there's an
Always.
there probably will be, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Do I have a second on that? I'm taking that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, it's Joanne here. I make an official motion to allow for 2 associate members on the Conservation Commission who do not have voting powers but can participate in discussions, and their term will be 2 years.
Wonderful.
Bonnie Sparks, I second that motion.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
Okay, having covered all the items on the agenda, the commission is going to go into, needs to consider going into executive session for the purpose of discussing a complaint of the open meeting law. This has to be done by a motion made to go into executive session, not to return to open session, I would suggest. And well, everything's a roll call vote now, so. So do I have a motion?
So
To
I
go
make
in,
to move into executive session and not return to open session. Yes.
Oh, sorry, Joanne here. I second that.
all in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
Okay. Anyone who is in the meeting is asked to leave. Executive session is for the purpose of discussion outside of public. We have 2 people who need to exit the meeting. The last person, Jamal, thank you. All right.
I believe we stopped the recording.
Yes, we do stop the recording, so it's off. It looks like it is